from the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. I'm Carla Gonzalez. This is from the South. Cyclone Idai has damaged or destroyed 90% of the city of Beira in Mozambique. Officials report that the death toll stands at 68 in the country. A dam burst on Sunday, cutting off the last road remaining to the city of about 500,000 people. Some affected areas still remain inaccessible. The destruction comes as the cyclone has killed at least 150 people in several countries of Southern Africa. According to the Red Cross and the Red Crescent Federation, at least 126 people died in Mozambique, Malawi, and South Africa. The tropical storm has affected more than 1.5 million people.
Before my house collapsed, cracks appeared in the walls, and soon after the house came down, we all ran outside and watched it as it fell. We were lucky to have got out with only minor injuries, but many other people were killed and some were very badly injured. Many more haven't been seen since the flood came. We heard crocodiles have eaten some people. I have lost all my belongings.
We are receiving more women and children. Most of them are malnourished and they need urgent medical attention. Sadly, we don't have enough supplies. We are asking the government to move in fast to assist the sick and the malnourished. Some of these children have malaria, but we cannot treat them because we don't have the drugs. Others have diarrhea, and we need oral rehydration and zinc.
At least 24 people died and another 31 were injured when a freight train carrying stowaways derailed in the Democratic Republic of Congo in the Kasai province. Most of the bodies retrieved from the accident were children. Several wagons fell off the Luembe River and 5 were overturned. This is the third derailment in the DRC over the past month. 5 people were killed in a passenger train accident last month. A man has opened fire in a tram in the Dutch city of Utrecht. At least one person is believed to have died and several others were injured. Police say the perpetrator fled the scene. They confirm they are investigating a possible terrorist motive behind the attack, and reports suggest they are looking for more than one suspect. The shooting took place in a residential neighborhood. And following the Islamophobic attack on worshipping Muslims in Christchurch, New Zealand last Friday, citizens have started returning to work. Police are still on alert as the country reels from the killing of 50 people at 2 mosques. 50 others were left injured, 2 critically. 1 man has been charged with murder. Police have said they will face further charges. Following a cabinet meeting on Monday, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, has said the government has agreed to work on tightened gun control laws.
Cabinet today made in-principle decisions around the reform of our gun laws. I intend to give further detail of these decisions to the media and public before Cabinet meets again.
French authorities have acknowledged that this weekend's violent repression of Yellow Vest protests showed security flaws which need to be rectified. Police used water cannons and tear gas on protesters who are demanding economic justice in the nation. 60 people were reported injured, while several buildings were destroyed. Police have estimated that 10,000 people joined the latest Yellow Vest protest in Paris.
Listen, there are some things that were dysfunctional. I'm in charge of public order and security. And yes, it was a failure. But I would like to underline everything we have done since the beginning and everything we're going to do now to improve things.
Now to Venezuela. Following the countrywide power outage last week, authorities are making sure all services are protected and working properly, including water. The Venezuelan Minister of Water, Evelyn Vázquez, visited a treatment plant outside Caracas.
The armed forces are deployed all around the country. Today, we are visiting the water treatment plant called La Guairita to verify that water purification procedures work perfectly. The armed forces are also deployed here to secure the plant against possible opposition attacks. We have 100% of water pumps resettled. coming after 4 days of a very hard situation due to the criminal attack on our power grid. We are still recovering. We achieved 80% of recovery on average. In some places, we already achieved 100%.
A group of former Venezuelan soldiers who deserted their posts on the border last month are about to be homeless. After they fled to Colombia, they were being kept in a shelter by local authorities. The opposition lawmaker who called on them to betray their duty has apparently now abandoned them.
Today, a number of us were given notice by representatives from the UNHCR telling us that we had 3 to 4 days to leave our current shelter and find a new place to stay at. They offered to give us a mat, a blanket, 350,000 pesos, which equals to $111, plus a map of the area so we can find our way around. Most of us have no families here, nowhere to go, so they said they would start breaking us up little by little.
When were you told of this? Where are you supposed to go now?
We were told less than an hour ago. Now we have to find a place to stay.
How many of you are there here?
We used to be over 300, but now there's only 200 of us.
What are your living conditions here?
We are being given food and shelter at the moment, but we want a solution to this issue. We had no contact with our president, Juan Guaidó. We want him to come here and help us. He sent a couple of representatives, but they have not given us a solution. We want solutions. We were the breadwinners back in Venezuela, but after deserting, we're stuck here with no job or anything.
A national march was held in Washington, D.C. in rejection of criminal U.S. policies on Venezuela. The demonstration was attended by representatives of social movements and peace activists who call for an end to sanctions and aggression. Among the marchers was Ben Norton, a journalist with the Gray Zone who had just recently returned from Venezuela. He spoke about the situation he found there while also condemning U.S. lawmakers who support intervention.
So unbelievable. It's like the media here is on another planet. The differences are just so outrageous. It's one of the most egregious campaigns of lies I've ever seen in my entire life. How there's this idea that there's a humanitarian crisis, that it's a dictatorship, that the government is repressive and dictatorial. In fact, being in Venezuela reminded me how authoritarian and violent my own government is here at home. Marco Rubio he's pitiful. Not only is he a neoconservative, not only is he a propagandist, not only is he an abject liar, he's simply pitiful. I don't even know what his base is anymore because his base has been so thoroughly destroyed by Trumpism. You know, now he's flagellating before Donald Trump after leading a campaign where Donald Trump turned him into a child on stage, and he's still kowtowing to Donald Trump. Marco Rubio is also, again, I need to stress this point, a blatant liar, and it's just pitiful, his lies. Recently, he claimed that the Venezuelan government was responsible for the so-called German dam collapsing, leading to the blackout. Actually, Herman Dam was the name of the journalist, not the dam that supposedly was destroyed in Venezuela. He's just a liar, and his lies are just so ridiculous that they're actually hilarious. He is a complete idiot. I mean, just being blatant. He's a moron.
We'll have more stories coming up. We'll be back.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. Telesur documentary. Sundays. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. A journalist has been killed in the south of Honduras. 54-year-old Gabriel Hernandez was reportedly shot on the street as he was heading back home. Hernandez was known for his critical reports against the local government. Due to previous death threats, he had asked for protection, but it was denied. According to the National Committee of Human Rights, 75 journalists were killed in Honduras between 2001 and 2018. For decades in Mexico City, dumpster diving and scavenging for food on the streets has been a means of survival for hundreds of people. However, the government of Andrés Manuel López Obrador aims to change the situation with a series of welfare programs.
In search of food, people like Josefina Cardenas shift through piles of garbage, something she has been doing every day for the last 3 decades.
My children taught me how to do it after they started looking through shops' garbage. They were small, but they told me one day that, Mom, let's go to the city center because we'll find good stuff there.
Scavenging can be done at any dumpster in the city at any time.
I do this in order to survive, because I don't have any other form of income. I find many things, so I'm more or less able to provide for my family.
For some, like Martha, who is a seamstress, the food she finds in these dumpsters makes up the basis of her family's sustenance.
My seamstress work paid very little, and it's just not enough for me to get by. I have to come and look for vegetables that I can take home to feed my family with.
Just how many people have come here from other towns to scavenge? There are so many people in need.
Dumpster diving and scavenging for food have become so common that there are even associations of scavengers at large sites like Mexico City's main wholesale market, the Central de Abasto. In this metropolitan city that never sleeps, scavengers also work 365 days a year, some finding food for their own consumption, while others try to sell what they come across. These people have never received the resources that several governments promised to allocate for them in order to fight poverty. It was even revealed that the administration of former President Enrique Peña Nieto cheated away most of the funds in what's known as the master scam.
In the name of fight against hunger, they supposedly allocated funds to distribute food and promote certain events. But for this, the hiring was done through the series of ghost companies created by university in the states of Mexico and Morelos.
The new government of Andrés Manuel López Obrador has also promised to combat social inequality, poverty, and the marginalization of society through comprehensive welfare programs, some of which have already been implemented.
Farmers in the Dominican Republic have been greatly affected by the worst drought to hit the nation in 30 years. According to farmer unions, over 7,000 heads of cattle have died and many remain vulnerable due to water scarcity. This drought has been affecting the country since late 2018, with predictions saying that the conditions won't improve until May. A financial assistance package has been launched so farmers can receive some compensation for their losses.
We have no water. The wells have dried up. There is only one river in our province that still flows. That's the Guayubín River. The Yaguajay River has dried up. The Cana River has dried up. The Bellaco River has dried up. The Gurabo is dry. The Maguana is dry. The Clavijo is dry. All rivers are dry. We only have one river with flowing water, and because it's far away, it's impossible to take all the cattle there.
Argentina's Football Association has announced the launch of a professional women's football league. 16 teams will participate in the league, which will begin on June. The league will receive 24 million pesos, about $600,000 each year, to be spent on players' salaries. Women's basic salaries in the first division will equal male players in the Division 4. Argentina is the second country in Latin America after Colombia to sponsor female football in a professional category.
After working hard, the Argentine Football Association will also have a female tournament. It will be one of the first women's federations around the world where the players will be at the professional level.
It's always been a dream to give more importance to women's football, that it start being professional. Even if we can't maintain this, the financial support will help a lot.
Authorities in Bolivia are continuing to fight against gender violence, and it has now become a priority. We have more in this report.
Not the protests or the new laws have achieved the goal of decreasing the high number of femicides in Bolivia, one of the most affected countries by gender violence. But at least now there are weapons to face it.
The Law 348 has defined 17 types of gender violence, among them the feminicide. This has allowed us to make this problem visible, but what worries me is that this is an ongoing problem. Let's not forget that masculinity and machismo is very present, not only among men, but also for women.
International organizations are also launching new strategies, as they are worried about the tragedy of femicides.
This region in particular has one of the highest rates of femicides in the world. In Bolivia, we estimate that 128 women were killed last year. Every 2 days, a woman is killed, and these crimes remain in impunity. A cultural change is needed at the schools, in the communities, among the families.
The current Bolivian law is recognized as one of the most progressive in this matter, and it's said that it's a useful tool against the killing of women, a crime defined as femicide.
Before, our law didn't contemplate the figure of femicide. We used to define femicides as the murder due to violent emotions. For example, when you heard I was jealous, so I killed her. It is not like that anymore. This has become a visible problematic, and now it is defined as a penal crime. This has helped to raise awareness, but of course, there is still a lot to do.
There are laws to punish these crimes, but they need to be implemented by those responsible in municipalities, by the police, and especially by judges.
The police, the prosecutor, and the judiciary have to establish protocols for the victims. They cannot justify these crimes by saying she was walking alone with 5 men, or that it is her fault because she was wearing a short skirt, or that she was walking late at night, or that she was drunk, as if that was an excuse for violence.
One of the greatest problems is impunity. Our research has revealed that only less than 5% of the femicide cases reported ended up with a sentence.
Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro is set to meet with his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump to discuss Venezuela. They are also expected to discuss allowing the U.S. to use a satellite launching base in northern Brazil and bilateral agreements, including Brazil's entry to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. The far-right president is being hosted at the White House, a rare honor for visiting heads of state. Bolsonaro is also expected to meet with the head of the Organization of American States. In other news, man's best friend is making a difference in Brazilian hospitals. Dog-assisted therapies are becoming increasingly popular at institutions where children, the elderly, and people with special needs are being cared for. Experts believe the interaction helps patients recover faster. Trained dogs visit patients every week and spend about 15 minutes with them, either in their room or outside while playing.
They love it. It's clear how the patients were before receiving the treatment and how they are after interacting with the dogs. It changed completely. The patients are happier, more receptive. Even in the part of physiotherapy, they are more open to treatment and move with more enthusiasm. The animals end up giving them a lot of motivation.
We're taking one last break. Stay with us.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transformed the world today. On Monday, only on Beira City.
Welcome back. Peruvian indigenous filmmakers are releasing a short film focused on women's rights in the indigenous community of Vilcashuaman. Alarming rates of gender violence have been reported in this area of the country.
Maribel is one of the main characters in this short film. In the movie, she speaks about her life in Vilcashuaman, a community located in the Ayacucho region, in the Andes, where girls do not have the right to education. They cannot choose their husbands either. Their families pick for them. Once they get married, they are often victims of physical and psychological abuse.
There is a lot of machismo. Women are marginalized. Men do not value women's work. And authorities, neither do they. They do not care. They only care about rich people. When we go to report what happens to us or we file a complaint, they do not pay attention and tell us to leave.
The short film is called Manaika Mana Chincacmi, that in Quechua means pain does not go away. It was shot by young indigenous filmmakers with the collaboration of the Federation of Vilcashuaman Indigenous Women. Their goal was to make visible the violence indigenous women suffer.
We want people to think about this so they can change their minds. We want women to have the same rights.
How would you like the world for women in your community to be?
I want my community to be happy and free of violence.
They want to see their community change, to have a life different from the ones their mothers had. They want to achieve equal rights and freedom, as well as a world without violence. The rate of gender violence in the Ayacucho region is alarming. 51 femicides have been reported in the last year. 4,125 women reported being victims of physical, psychological, and sexual violence in 2018.
Statistics sometimes don't take into account all different types of violence. As indigenous women, we suffered more discrimination due to our language and how we look. We also suffer discrimination because we don't speak very good Spanish. So there are different issues we have to face.
This short film will be released in the Vilcashuaman community and will also premiere in different film festivals in Peru and around the world.
Iran's chief of staff has arrived in Syria for an official visit. The head of Iran's armed forces, Mohammad Bagheri, arrived in Damascus for a series of meetings. His main goal is to coordinate plans to tackle terrorism in the region. Meanwhile, much of the Islamic State's last enclave in eastern Syria has fallen. Reports say that at least 10 civilians were killed during airstrikes. Thousands of people, most of them families of Islamic State fighters, had surrendered. This after US-backed forces led by Kurdish YPG led the siege to the city of Baghouz. However, some civilians have yet to be evacuated.
I think it's hard to estimate when it is going to be over. We are facing several difficulties regarding the operations, the big number of mines and explosive devices planted by ISIS, and the existence of tunnels and hideouts used by ISIS beneath the ground that are using them to attack our forces or to defend themselves by it.
3 people died during a St. Patrick's Day event in Northern Ireland. Let's take a look at this and other stories from around the world.
3 teenagers died in an incident at a St. Patrick's Day hotel event in Northern Ireland, police confirmed. Footage shows a large crowd pushing up against the front of the hotel as people try to get in. Investigations are ongoing to clarify the incident, but it's believed the victims were crushed to death.
At about 9:30 last night, the emergency services in this area were called to the area on reports of children and young people being crushed, and also some reports that there may have been some fighting. We've responded in large numbers. Over 13 police crews arrived, over 21 fire service personnel arrived, supported by ambulance colleagues, and 3 people were taken from the scene in critical condition. 2 of them unfortunately died in hospital and 1 here died at the scene.
The US-led coalition has been hitting the last enclave of the Islamic State in its Syria. Airstrikes and artillery were launched at the stronghold as coalition forces resumed their weeks-long attack. Thousands, including civilians, had fled the area since the offensive started back in January. A storage tank has been set on fire in the U.S. city of Houston. The massive fire began in a giant storage tank containing naphtha, a volatile component of gasoline. No injuries were reported, and the causes are being investigated.
This news brief, but you can find these and many other stories by going to our website, telesurenglish.net. And you can also join us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.
Huela Pouch.